sometimes you can definitely overanalyze things and over logicify it. And sometimes it's a game. It's a word now. Over logicify. Welcome to Line of Fire, the game dev podcast from Sharkmob. Again, I'm Martin Hultberg, co-founder of Sharkmob, CMCO, IP or narrative director, depending on what day of the week it is. And I am the host for the podcast today. So I have our art director, Erik Nilsson, with me today in our studio. We're going to be talking about how we create and execute visual direction in a multiplayer game. And we'll be probably touching a bit on Exoborne, but also on Bloodhunt, because he worked here back in the day when we did Bloodhunt, and he is responsible for most of the lovely characters you've seen in our games. So hi, Erik.
Hello. Very nice to meet you here again, Martin.
Yes.
Like we don't do that every day.
Like we don't do it every day, right? Could you just give us a brief bio of your background? Where do you come from? What have you done before? What do you do now?
Absolutely. Well, what can I say? I've worked as a concept artist and a 3D artist for quite a while now. I've started out working actually on Massive, on The Division, as I think a lot of people here have. Did some work on some drones and stuff like that. Worked a bit on Paradox way back, on Stellaris space games. Sci-fi is clearly like a thing I love. So that was kind of awesome. Worked a bit with my own game company for a few years, and then I ended up here with you guys. Worked on The Vampire, which is another favorite game IP of mine, Vampire the Masquerade. So that was also really cool. And I'm here on Exoborne as the character art director. So worth noting, a little shout out to my fellow art directors. We have a really excellent world art director as well. Called Lars, and of course Rodde, who's the studio art director. So we're three bandidos running around trying to art direct.
So then what exactly is the responsibility of a character art director?
So essentially, I think overall as characters, it's all the characters and robots and exos and guns and character related items in the world. That's my responsibility of trying to pull them all together, make the whole thing look cohesive and that they fit in the world. I think a lot of my job is also to be kind of like a snowplow, to always be ahead of the team and make sure that they are not getting bottlenecked or in any way hindered, basically.
Right. You worked on a few different projects. What would you say? I guess you haven't always been a character art director, but you definitely did that job for Bloodhunt, and you're doing it for Exoborne. Is it very different depending on the project, or is it always the same type of challenges that you face?
I think it's a lot of similar challenges. Like in my past, I've worked as a concept artist, so actually sitting down and drawing and designing a lot of the characters. I've also worked with 3D, animating, rigging, VFX, which is really nice because it gives me a broad platform to stand on when I make decisions. I can actually I can understand what the teams are going through. I can talk to them and really understand what challenges they're doing, what problems they're trying to solve. And I think for every project, it's quite similar in general. You have to establish some rules and set up guidelines that you're trying to follow for the world and the place that these characters are in. So I think that's the first thing you always do as an art director for any project.
So I guess then you also have must have a fairly wide touch base in the production team of people you interact with. I heard you mention concept art. I assume there's, like you said, rigging and probably people who do textures and modelers, and I guess animation kind of also touches on it.
Yeah, so I think the reason why I love game development in general is because you get to work with a big group of diverse people with different experiences and skill sets, and I used to be able to do that a lot as a concept artist, but now I get to do it even more as an art director. And I love that, being able to go up to different teams, talk to them, see the whole project grow in front of you from different angles. We have a really excellent animation director as well, for example, Martin, who's also called Martin.
It's a good name.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
Yes, multiple people have it, and just like Erik, we have 4 Eriks in the company. Yeah. Good name. It's really cool to be able to work with them. But the really good thing about having these teams is that you have really good people you can rely on each of the teams. So you can help them out, and then you kind of leave and you come back, and they're sorting it, while you're away. So.
Yeah, we usually do an exercise, this or that exercise before we get started. But at the same time, I feel so comfortable talking to you because we talk every day, so I forgot to do the this or that. But maybe, Rochelle, if you please, I think the this or that can help the audience get to know Erik a bit better. So.
Yeah, for sure. You might have already answered this, but the first one I'm wondering is sci-fi or fantasy?
It's so hard. It changes from day to day, from week to week. I used to hate drawing sci-fi because I thought it was really difficult, and I grew up with dinosaurs being my main thing, and so dragons naturally, so fantasy naturally, but sci-fi is just really awesome. I think I always kind of come back to sci-fi, but yeah, it changes from week to week. Both are awesome. Can't give an answer. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to be as boring as Erik. I mean, when you're in this industry, I think it's easy to fall in love with both at different times. But
absolutely.
I think for now it's sci-fi. I'm playing way too much Dune right now, Dune Awakening. So yeah, sci-fi right now.
Okay. Erik, you mentioned you ran a indie studio. Indie, spirit, or AAA structure?
I think, again, I know being boring again, not being able to pick, what is this? You got to be decisive when you're a director, right? But I think both are really good for different reasons. Like, I think the cool thing with AAA is that you have a lot more resources. You can do bigger things, and you work with a lot more people. So that's like very fun, but it also has its own set of challenges. Indie is very nice because you have a lot of creative kind of wiggle room. You can go wherever you feel like going. There's not a lot of constraints, but it does mean that you don't have any money. So there's some drawbacks to that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that very thing right now. I mean, Sharkmob started out as an indie thing, and so we've definitely been on that journey and we've done it. But the level of support you can get on a AAA project from your publisher and from other functions, if you're part of a bigger group like we are, it allows you to do things you can't do as an indie. So there are definitely things I appreciate with being an indie and being truly independent and unconnected. But at the same time, in my experience, you can do so much more when you have that support structure around you. So I'm going to go for AAA structure.
Both have their charms.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, creative freedom or creative constraints?
Oof. I mean, that's a difficult one. I think that the best creative projects usually come out of creative constraints, because when you have if you just give someone complete freedom, it can go in any direction. It can be very unfocused. When you have a box that you need to adhere to, you find creative solutions to try and get out of that box. And I think, that usually makes the product look way more interesting. So I think some kind of creative constraint, I think I would go for, because you always want that, I think.
Yeah. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they belong together for the reason you just described. There needs to be a box. Otherwise, you'll end up treading water and not getting anywhere. I think we covered this similarly in an earlier podcast as well. We want to focus our creative energy and focus the team effort. And for that, you need a certain amount of limitations on the creativity. But still, the idea is to give everyone freedom within that box. And that is important, to allow for creativity in the box.
Yeah, and I think like the first thing I always do when I have creative freedom is start to set up the box.
Yeah.
I mean, because like that's how you do, like when you do art direction, like you start to like find out, well, what is the actual foundation that I'm going to stand on? What are the different pillars of this house that I'm building? If you don't have that, you don't have anything to like be attached to.
So that was a bit of the this or that, showing everyone how poor directors can be at picking options instead picking everything. But that's kind of also part of the exercise. Sometimes you want to achieve things in more than one area at the same time. And that, I think, is an interesting topic. It's like we talked about the creative limitations of being in the box, and of course there are also other limitations that we're well aware of. It's budget, it's resources on the team or whatever. What do you find to be typically the biggest challenges for you to get where you want to go with your direction?
That is a difficult question, because I feel like there's so many different potential problems that always pop up. But I think I think if I go at like this instead, like something I see like a big difference between what directors do versus what like an artist do, for example, is an artist have a very specific task. They're focused on making a helmet or making an armor or something like that. And directors tend to be more about, we don't really go that nitty-gritty. We can, but our main focus is like, okay, we're making this helmet. How does that relate to everything else in a game? Does it fit into the big whole? Because I'm looking at the big whole. The whole of the world, the whole of the characters, everything. How does it feel when you go through the, not like look at one piece of clothing, but like the whole lineup of clothing we have in the game, for example. So I think like a big challenge in general is how do you, like, the thing you always come back to as a director is like, you keep looking at the whole of the project and you keep evaluating, like, is this working? Is everything, all the pieces, are they creating something greater than the sum of their parts? I think that's like the challenge you're always kind of dealing with as a director. And then basically, how do you communicate and how do you distribute that work to people? How do you delegate in a way where, because it's very easy, I think, as a director to become micromanagey. Like, you can very easily fall into the trap of, I'll just do it myself because I have the, I'm looking down from the skyscraper, I have the top-down view. I see what needs to be done. I'll just fix it. But you can't do that, like, because then you're taking away people's creativity and freedom, and you're gonna make a mess of everything, and also you are like, you just don't have the energy to do that yourself. Like, you need to learn how to rely on people and how to delegate. So I think
you become a bottleneck, right? Because now all of a sudden you're trying to do everyone's work for them, which means that you're not doing anyone's work really, because Yeah. So I agree with that, and that is like, oftentimes that might be one of those unknown challenges. Like, if you've never directed people yourself, it's one of the pitfalls that's easy to fall into. It's like, I want you to do X. How do I get you to do X instead of me doing X? Yeah. And once you figure that out, that's when you can start creating efficient direction.
Yeah.
And so that's actually quite interesting. What tools do you use to communicate direction? How do you get teams to go in the direction you want?
I think to a degree you need to have a good structure under you. Like, for example, I rely a lot on the producers that I work with. That, if I'm like, okay, we need to fix A, B, and C. I don't have time to chase all of them. This is the cliff note of what I need us to do, and then I give that to my producers, and they chase it and they enforce it and try and like figure things out. Or leads, for example, like having good leads and having good key people that you really know can pick up the thing and just run with it. I think that's always important. And then I think it's also about, how do you talk to people? How do you talk to the crew? And I think you have to be okay with not everything being perfect, and you have to leave some room for people to make mistakes. And you have to be like, okay, well, my job is not to make sure that every single piece of like thing we put in is exactly right. It just needs to work in the overall, again, like the overall view and vision of the project. So by leaving some space for people to be creative, I'm not going to micromanage them, and I'm not going to destroy their creative joy, basically. And and just doing that and then talking with them and just having a conversation like a normal person, and them actually being present, like them getting to know you as a person, means that they're not going to be they're going to listen to you, and they're not going to be afraid of talking to you.
Yeah, I guess it's also a matter of confidence and personal development, right?
Yeah.
If you, or if I, or we, anyone who's a director, if you override people too much, or if you guide them too hard, they start losing confidence, and then they instead just sit there and wait for instruction, which is not effective in doing your work. And it's also, I think this is a classic one, but you have to let people make mistakes, because that's how humans learn things. But we are, not all of us are good at learning lessons by people just telling us what to do. Like, some of us have to try and fail and learn. And there needs to be a certain amount of room for that, even in a professionally run project. It's like you have to let people try things, because otherwise they will never give you 100% in the future, because they're afraid to push it. And 2 failures in a controlled environment could be a price worth paying for the curiosity and the willingness to take a risk that might then become the defining thing in your game.
Absolutely. And I think also just explaining why you want to do something, like actually explaining your reasoning behind it, not just saying do this, but actually explaining where you're coming from, and to see your team as like a team of experts. Like, you're not going to be the best at everything. Like, I'm not the best character modeler. I'm definitely not the best. I know how to design characters, but I don't always know how to 3D model them. So having a team of experts that you actually listen to and be like, I want to do A, and I want to do it for these reasons. And then they say, well, we can do that, but then that causes these problems. Then actually not just being bullhead. Like, sometimes you have to be like, okay, but we got to do it anyway, because we got to reach this goal. But sometimes being like, okay, interesting. How can we like adjust this and change it to maybe get something even greater, or like something that actually works well with both the team and your vision? I think that's also really important to listen to your experts.
That's a good point. I think you and I have had this discussion a couple of times over the years. Exo-rigs as a concept, as a mechanical thing, were actually technically difficult to do in ways that I don't think everyone appreciates or understands. So was there anything you learned along the way where you went like, okay, the expert just told me this, I wasn't quite aware that this was one of the challenges we had? Or did you have an idea what it was, but maybe not as detailed?
I mean, because I have a background in rigging, like making like when you animate a character, like you make a 3D model and then you got to fill it with like a puppeteer like skeleton, a bit like when you do stop motion animation, and that is called a rig. And because I have a background in building those rigs and I have a background in building characters, I kind of knew already in Vampire the Masquerade, when we were looking at exo-rigs for one of our factions, that they are a pain in the ass to build, because they're essentially like, you already have a skeleton system in the character, and then you're adding another skeleton system on top of that, and that's expensive performance-wise. So how do we find an efficient way of doing that that's not going to be super expensive? So I think I wasn't really that surprised by a lot of the things that we found out when we started working on this, because we'd already tried it a bit, and I understood the logic behind it. But I'm really impressed by the amazing solutions people came up with. Like, they did some really cool tech and some really cool solutions to kind of reduce the amount of work that we had to do. For example, one thing I really liked about our exosuits is that we tried and used like Unreal had like a new feature called control rigs, and the way we basically made it was so that we have one skeleton in the human, and then we have one sort of like a few skeletons in the exo. And normally you would maybe have to animate first the human and then the exo, or do some kind of complicated system around that. But now we could just use the new feature in Unreal, control rig, and just drive the exosuit with the human. So we just animate the human and everything else follows. And that's like a really nice way to save a lot of time and effort, and being able to reuse stuff. And So I wasn't really surprised by a lot of the problems we had, but I was very impressed, I think, by a lot of the solutions the team came up with. They were very, very cool.
So the technical aspect of animations, but also I guess the cost of a character. When you talk to artists about the cost of a character, it often comes down to poly count and stuff like that. Could you, like, I guess we have a lot of very detailed text stuff on a character that you can see from different angles, and it sometimes it moves and whatever.
So I mean the thing is, performance is always going to be a problem. Like, you know, everything has a cost when you make a game, and obviously single player games, like characters in general are very costly, and in single player games you only have one character really you have to care about. Yes, you have enemies, but they're usually like way more complicated and way less detailed because they're far away and stuff. But in multiplayer games, it becomes very costly because you have a player character that's quite costly, and then you have to have maybe 40 other player characters, and you have to simulate that across like a server. So it's a lot of performance cost. That's why multiplayer games usually have less detailed graphics and simpler characters. And yes, triangles and like how expensive the character model is definitely plays into that. But also, you know, texture sizes, that has performance cost, and joints, the amount of actual like parts of the skeleton that you're animating, that's also really expensive. So we knew that having additional joints basically for the exos would be costly. So yeah, it's everything is expensive, and you just have to have a really good team to try and figure out how do we reduce that cost to as little as possible while still retaining like really good detail and really cool characters. And yeah,
I mean that cost comes with the style of games that we do at Sharkmob, which is like realistic graphics, realistic looking games,
and we want to push the envelope as well.
Exactly, right. But realism, I've always enjoyed working on it. I come from a Clancy background, and I like the groundedness, the real connection. And this is another thing where we've had lots of discussions between IP/narrative and art direction, both for the world and for characters. I think at one point you did a kind of like, I don't know, revision isn't the right word, but you looked at all the exo-rig stuff we had, and you tried to find a style of exo that was connected to the type of product you would see in the part of the world where we are, America. Like if you look at how hardware is designed in different parts of the world, there is a certain uniqueness to some of that stuff. And I always think you did a very big exercise there where you compared military hardware, and you looked at like construction equipment and all kinds of stuff, and kind of found our visual identity for the exos. And is that something that, I guess it's part of your process, but could you talk more about how you do that and where you get the inspiration from when you do that?
I feel like whenever you design something, you have to go with, like I always lean back to form follows function. If you just design something because it looks cool, yeah, maybe it'll look cool, but might not be very believable. It might not fit into the world. You have to look at, like, if I'm going to design a, I don't know, like a predator from, like in an alien planet or something, I would look at, well, where does it live? Okay, it lives in the desert. All right, then it needs these kind of, things to survive. This is what shaped it. Oh, it's a predator that hunts prey. It needs long legs, right? Like, what's the primary method to catch its prey? It has big teeth and big jaws and strong jaw muscles, and it has the eyes moving like pointed forward because that's what predators do. They have them like so to get binocular vision. Once you find the function, then like the design kind of follows that, and you sort of start to get like a very logical leap from one thing to another. And so the first thing we just had to figure out was, okay, well, we have these characters in the game. They're gonna have exosuits or exo-rigs, and they what are they? What kind of characters are they? Are they construction workers? No, they're kind of warriors now. Okay, well, what is the tech originally based on? Well, the tech is kind of based on this and that, and it's set in America. Okay, well, what is the kind of shape language that American tech usually has? Like how big is it? How, like...
Everything is big in America.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Even
the cars are fucking huge. Yeah. But like, everything is all about how do you like everything has shaped something, you know, like there's like the culture has shaped how certain things look. There's precedents there that you can look at and try and understand, well, why do American military have tanks shaped that have armor plates that are shaped that way? There's a reason behind that. And once you start understanding that reason, then you can just apply that logic. You know, like we're not trying to do exactly the same thing, but we're trying to make it feel that it fits into that world, into that place in the world. So I think what we did was basically just narrow down what are the logical needs basically of these characters, and then we use that as a base for making decisions. And I think that always works with whatever you do. So I think that was a big exercise in it. We looked at American military, American tech, and a bunch of other things, and we drew conclusions.
I have this thing where when I watch testers or regular players play our game, there's always something. This has happened to me in every project where you realize when they interact with your game, you go like, oh my god, that thing. Have you ever felt that on Bloodhunt or Exoborne, where people, when they came in contact with our game, you went like, wow, I didn't know they would do that, or that was unexpected, or...
Yeah, I think all the time. Like, I think that's something that's really fun about letting the public play the game. Like, finally, you know, you've been working on this like little this witch's brew where everyone's just poured in their different ideas into this big kettle, and it's just been stirring for a few years, and you've just been like so in the tunnel just looking at this thing, and then suddenly players from the outside get to try it. And they do some weird shit with it, and it's really cool. It's really, really awesome because you get surprised, and you get bemused, and you start to see. Suddenly, you start to change your perspective, and you start to see your game from a different angle than what you've been locked in for the past couple of years.
Right.
So I think, I mean, I've definitely seen that in all the games I worked on. I think just one of my favorite moments is still just seeing one of the streamers like going like, oh yeah, I'm gonna extract, I'm so cool, jumping off the roof, rollerblades, smoke, and then going down on the ground, being like crawling, and the shopper's like, and he's like, he realizes, you can see the moment where he realizes like, oh no, it's gonna leave without me. No, and he crawls, and he's like, no, and then he managed to actually grapple hook and get back in, and you know, it's just really fun and entertaining when people do it that way, and like it's a cool moment, right? And it's like everything you hoped it would be and more. And I think
I mean, the reason I ask is because when you talked about how you design, how we design the exos, you mentioned that whole logical approach to things. And this is something that happens in pretty much every game development. Is every developer out there is going to try to, or every developer I ever met at least, is going to try to have a logical approach to how they make their game. But logic is also often the victim of production realities, constraints. And so you do a solution that from your point of view, with the resources you have, is quite logical. But then you get someone coming in from the outside, and they try it, and they do something completely different because they're looking at it from a completely different point of view. And that can sometimes generate very interesting and hilarious moments as well that were kind of unintended, because, you know, they're not interacting with the game in the way that you expected. And I think the rollerblades thing was kind of expected. I mean, we made sure it gave damage for a reason, but it's also still very fun to see every time people discover it. It's kind of like in Bloodhunt, we had the shark in the canal because we used the canal as a border so we could limit the size of the map, right? And obviously vampires wouldn't have problems with water. They don't even breathe, so they could, in theory, just walk across it on the bottom, right? But we needed to stop people from doing that, so there was a shark because we're Sharkmob. So if you jumped out into the water, the shark jumped up and it ate you. And everyone did that once just to see it. And then they were like, I've tried that now, let's not go in the water again. But it was a fun moment for everyone who did it.
I mean, we went through so many ideas for like what to do with the water and stuff, and we were like, maybe we could do this, or maybe we could do that, and like none of it really like seemed to gel or work or like fit. And then we were just like, the shark is pretty fun. Let's just keep that in.
Sometimes you can definitely overanalyze things and over logicify it. And sometimes it's a game. It's a word now. Over logicify. But a game should be fun. That's the thing. And if you can ever add quirky fun in spots like that, where it's kind of on the fringe of the game experience anyway, and it doesn't really matter, then I think, plenty of other developers have done it. It's always there, it's like these small hidden gems in games.
I'm really looking forward to seeing, on the note of like unexpected, I'm really looking forward to see what people will do with the game. Now that we've worked a bit more on it, there's going to be some interesting stuff that I think it's going to be very interesting to see how people play, what kind of like play styles develop, what kind of meta will like shape kind of how people play. That I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, I mean, doing online multiplayer games, obviously it's a kind of a collaborative effort with the people who play it. You can't make it in a vacuum. You can't pretend that the players don't exist or that they don't have their own view on your game, because they definitely do. And you have to listen to that. That doesn't mean you have to do what they say, but you have to understand what they want and how they perceive your game. But I'm interested then, does your view artistically on art direction stuff change based on how people interact with the game? Like, do you, for example, will the appearance of the exo-rigs be shaped by the audience in any way, you think?
I think to a degree, yes. I mean, I think that's always going to be the case, that you're trying to make decisions based on data, like logic, and like, okay, well, these are the fundamental IP reasons why things look the way they do. If we notice that people like a certain aspect of it, maybe that's something we'll take into that, calculation, and we'll be like, oh, people love just like they really want to paint all their exos in like shimmering rainbow. Maybe that's something that some people would love to do. I don't know. Okay, that's cool. That's something to consider. Like maybe we want to provide that in some way, or maybe people really love the design of something. They really love how this gun looks like. Okay, cool. That's interesting to know for the future, and you can see kind of what things are popular and what's not popular. Again, it doesn't mean that you're always going to listen to it, because there's also the world to consider. There's more than one point of view to consider. There's the IP reasons for why things are the way they are, and so but it's definitely going to have an impact. Everything does. I
mean, you're looking at the broader audience, right? And how they interact with and how they perceive this game. Because that's what matters in the end.
And I think especially like I always like to work on games where there's a lot of player customization, where you can kind of present yourself in different ways, and you can make yourself, like, I love going into games and just customizing my character and spending like an hour or more just like changing my hair color or whatever. And I think that's always going to have a like that should always have a place, player creativity, essentially.
Fitting for a character art
director to enjoy. I wonder where that comes from.
His characters.
Yes.
It makes perfect sense. Another interesting thing that could be worth picking your brain on is kind of like as an industry, there's a lot of things happening now, and definitely on the tools and tech side. We can see the introduction of AI. We can see different types of games coming out, and this has been a trend for quite some time. But more and more, not necessarily indies, but indie games, quirky games, different things happening that has been made possible thanks to technology, because you can now do more with smaller teams. Do you have any thoughts on the near future of gaming, and from your point of view as a character person, what is happening to characters in games? What can we expect?
Well, I think we're definitely going to see, like, I think that we don't really know exactly what's going to happen in the future. We're going to have an estimation. Like, we thought we would have flying cars and we end up with scooters, but and sometimes we just end up with something that comes out of nowhere. I think we're definitely going to see a lot more AI tools. Like something I'm looking forward to is I I don't like AI replacing artists, because I don't think it's ever going to be able to do as good of a job, because AI is creating things in like a vacuum. It's just taking
7-fingered hands.
Yeah, no, but it's yeah, exactly. But like, it doesn't understand. You know, it's
No.
not an intelligence.
It mimics something.
It
right?
mimics. Yeah, it doesn't understand what it is trying to do, and it's creating. It's kind of like if you went in and you looked at ArtStation, or like, you know, like a place where there's like a lot of artists, and you just copied everything that's in there, and you just kept copying it and copying it and copying it. But what a human does is it pulls from all the experience that person has. It pulls from real life. It pulls from a lot of different sources, and it tries to remix and create something new, and it keeps getting new information that keeps like getting pulled in. And I think that's always going to be a bit more powerful creatively. But what AI can do that's really cool is provide tools. Like, if we can reduce the amount of time it takes to UV map or 3D model, like we can have the artist create a cool sculpture, and then just with the snap of a finger, you have a low poly model, and it goes in the game. Like, that's going to be very efficient. That's going to be very fast. Instead of that, having that artist spend, you know, like a couple of weeks, like retopping and making like a low poly model.
It's good for testing and trying different things. Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, I think it's about like, I always like the idea of AI as a support, like a support class.
It's a tool.
Know? It's a tool. It should be your assistant.
Yeah.
You know, and that I think is probably going to shape a lot how people make games in the future. It's probably going to be maybe more teams, but smaller teams.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be like maybe big company, like AAA company is going to have a few smaller teams instead. Instead of having one big team doing one game, it's going to be, you're going to do 3 or 4 games at the same time, but you're going to have smaller groups, and it's going to be more efficient and more fast, I think. I think that's probably where we're headed. And you can see also using AI for I don't know, like lip syncing, for like creating like actual dialogues and things like that. Having like, you know, instead of a writer basically writing and like putting in pre-scripted stuff, it's going to be way more natural and flowy, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think on the writing side, I think the story for the foreseeable future will be created by people, because I think story is you know, it needs to feel genuine. A story needs to feel like it's coming from places, but the way that story then unfolds, and the bulk of content that is not story specific, but maybe filler is a sloppy word, but there's always a lot of interactions with vendors, and you talk to mission givers, and the AI can definitely make that a richer experience.
I think it's going to enhance rather than replace, or like that's how I would want to use it.
I agree.
If I were to use AI, because we're currently not using AI, but I think that's what I would prefer to do. Is like, how can we enhance what we're already doing, not replace what we're doing.
Yeah. So I also think it's interesting talking to a director, talking to someone who also for a while ran their own company and stuff. It's like, you know a lot about working with different teams and working with individuals. What if we're kind of addressing people out there who might not yet have gotten into the industry or are in the industry, but on their way, you know, to become more intermediate or senior? What are things people can think about in order to be efficient team members, to like, when it comes to collaboration across teams with people? Do you have any tips?
I think the main thing I always think about is I don't, you know, like if I were like an artist, like sitting and making something, I would stop trying to think of myself as just an artist. Like, you know, like it's fine. Some people really just want to do, they want to paint, you know, or they want to make a thing, and they don't care about making the game. But if you're working on a video game, if you're on a game developer, you should remember that you are a game developer. You are an artist, yes. You're maybe like a character artist or a 2D artist or a programmer or a level designer, but you're also a game developer. You know, it's like two sides, and you have to kind of engage both of them. And being the game developer means you're interested in the game you're making, in the product you're making. It's about talking to the other teams. It's about being curious. I love going to talk to different teams, like teams I don't have anything to do with. You know, I love going to talk to the programmers, like seeing what they're doing, I love talking to UI team, even though I don't work that much with them, because I'm interested in seeing where we take the game next, where we take this cool collaboration. And I think that's really important. Like, remember that you're more than just your direct title. You're also a game developer.
I guess it's also a matter where we can support each other, right? And we often talk about understanding the production reality or the bigger picture. Like, it's totally fine to be passionate about something and have a vision for something. I think it's more than fine. It's almost expected, and I love it when people do. But you also have to, like you said, kind of recognize that I'm not doing this work for me.
Yeah.
I'm doing it as part of something bigger. And so simple things like poly count and whatever, you know, there's a limit to how expensive a character can be, and if we can make it even cheaper, it's better, because then we can have more characters.
Yeah.
And so there's always these things where if you're when you become more experienced, more senior, you start looking at how can I add value to the entire team, not just to the specific task I'm doing, but to the entire project, to the people, you know, tangentially connected to me, because there are always things we can do that make the life of other developers easier, or for that matter, simple things like we have a quality control department that tests everything. Ideally, you test it yourself before you put it in, because otherwise their life is going to be madness, right? So test your own content, test it well, and then if there is something you didn't have time to find, or it was, you know, too complex to create that bug or whatever, they will find it, right? But it's like supporting each other is a hallmark of any efficient team, no matter what industry you're in.
And I mean, I love to test my own stuff, because like, why wouldn't you? It's like you're making a Picasso. Why wouldn't you look at it at the wall? You know,
right.
Like, why wouldn't you? Or like, you're making this like super fun toy. Why wouldn't you go to the sandbox and just play with it a little bit before you give it to all the other kids? I mean, like you want to see how that would look in the game. You want to see how that would behave. And I think like that sort of joy of just making something and trying it out, that I think is like fundamental to game development. If you're gonna
and it's like very complex in ways. I've often said that game development is worse than rocket science, because it is so complex, right? There are so many variables to everything, so many changes done, so many things happen, and we often rely on each other to get certain tasks done. And then you come to me and you go like, yeah, it's done, it's submitted, it's fixed. And then I assume that you've tested it because you told me it was done. Just submitting something doesn't mean it's done. It just means it's now in the engine. But that could create more havoc and more mayhem than anything else before it was there, right? So I think it's one of those things often overlooked, where people go like, I'm going to be the best at X, whatever I do, programmer, artist, design, whatever. But then you kind of might miss the point that you also need to be the best team player with your other devs for that to work. Because if you are best at doing characters, but those characters don't work in the game, they're not helping anyone.
I remember being a young artist and having a lot of, I think like something artists do that I've seen in everyone is that they tend to put a lot of themselves into what they create. Like, I think that's true for a lot of people, but I can just speak from the artist because that's what I've seen. But for example, you put your self-worth into what you do. And I remember growing up and like drawing and designing and being like, okay, well, I made a good drawing, I felt good about myself. I made a bad drawing the next day, I felt bad about myself. It feels like, okay, I'm as good as whatever I make. And so you start to put a lot of self-worth into what you make. And when someone tells you this is not good enough, like it needs to be this instead, you can get very defensive, because it's basically a criticism on yourself. So I think that's also like something that I had to learn a lot, is like that feedback is not a dangerous thing. Feedback is someone is trying to help you improve your work, and it's not directed at you, it's directed at the work. So trying to like learn to separate yourself from what it is you do, trying to realize that this is a person reaching out to you, trying to give you, and of course you can give bad feedback, you can be an asshole and just be shitty, but if you're even half decent at it, it should not be an issue. You should be able to have a conversation with someone about it. But I think that's really important as well. It's like learning how to separate yourself a bit from the work and realize that we are all a team. We're all trying to help each other out.
I mean, feedback culture, it's good you brought that up, because that's I think something we all can always work with, but it's always tougher in the beginning before you get used to it.
Yeah.
And you also have to realize that a lot of feedback you're going to get in the course of your career or your life is not actually about the quality of your work. It's how your work fits in with the quality of everything else.
Yes.
Which is what you said before. As a director, we have the holistic helicopter view of something, and something might stick out as extraordinarily well made, right? It could be that. You made that too good compared to everything else.
That could be
you need to scale
feedback.
it down a bit, or you need to go to other people and go like, hey, we can actually do it that well. You need to bring it up. That all but depends on time, budget, direction, style choices, all of those things, right? But when someone has that overview and comes to you and goes like, look, this thing you created, we need to fix that thing, this, that, and whatever. It's like, it's not about you. It's about that piece that was created.
I think it's a lot of times it's not about you.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for how to deal with feedback? Like, do you have any like, oh, this is what I always do when I get feedback, or like, this is something I learned? Putting you on the spot.
Well, first of all, I think it's what you said, something important. It depends on who's giving me the feedback, because if it's coming from a genuine place or from someone who's just being a bit of a hole about it, I deal with that quite differently. Like if it's from a place where it's constructive and it's from someone who, like me, wants to make a great game, then even if it hurts me, because it might be like you said, I've invested in this, I believe in this, and then someone comes and tells me like, we have to do it this way instead. The lesson there is basically, as a game developer, you often learn to kill your darlings, because that happens all the time. We cut things, we change things. All of a sudden, a map or a level is gone, and now we need to change the narrative. And like, I've had that happen to me over projects so many times, right? Yeah. So one, don't take it personally, because it's not personal. It's not about you. It's about the game. And once you detach yourself from the personal thing, I think it's easier to take any type of feedback. And that's typically the problem with a-hole feedback, is that they attack you as a person. Yeah. It's typically unfair, and it's directed at you, and that's why you get angry or upset or sad about it. And that's why that type of feedback, there is no good way to handle poor feedback, because it hurts you. But if, again, just look at who's saying it and how they're saying it, and if it's coming from the right place with the right tone, then just remember it's not about you.
No,
it's about the work.
And someone trying to help you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an opportunity to grow as well. And again, depending on the situation, your solution might be perfectly fine if other things were similar, or if there weren't other issues going on around it. But now these issues are there, and we need to adjust that thing you made. So just adjust it. It's like, the end result matters. And typically, when you work as a team, it's the whole, like you said, that gets judged. It's the whole that creates the game experience for the player. It's not one individual thing. It's an aggregate of all things. So we need to look at it as a team. Like, we need to pull together. And then I think you could probably have a 2-hour podcast about how to give feedback in a constructive way, because Lord knows that's a tricky subject, because it's about the person giving the feedback, it's about the people taking the feedback, it's about the location you're in when you're doing it, and the context of all of that. And so I think many ways giving feedback can probably be more difficult than taking it, if you want to give it in a constructive way.
I think peer reviews are pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
Peer reviews are good. I always try and have a project at home. Yep. That's not for anyone else. That's just for me. It could be just be painting I like painting minis, like not Warhammer. I'm an Infinity man myself, but you know, painting something small, and like that could be like a project, or it could be whatever, a creative project of some sort. But having something for yourself at home means that you can put all your self-worth in that if you want, and then you can separate yourself a bit at the work. For example.
I think at a workplace or in a bigger team, feedback culture also needs to rely on failure culture.
Oh yeah.
You have to be allowed to fail. You have
Yeah.
to be allowed to get it wrong. Like, you tried to achieve greatness, you didn't get all the way. We now fix the content that you tweak the content that you made, and that's fine, because you tried. It came from a good place. You tried to do something, you learned something. The next time it's going to be better. We move on. It's a process. It's not, it's not one moment in time. It's across time.
Absolutely.
And on the subject of time, maybe we are drawing to an end. Do you have anything else you want to let the audience know before we sign off today?
Not really. I think if there's anything to take with it is that games are immensely complex, and it's all about teamwork and decisions. It's like all the decisions we take together is what shapes the game. It's all about the game, and that's important to remember. Like, be a game developer.
Yeah, be a team player.
Yeah, be a team player.
We are making multiplayer games after all, so that's the core of it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Erik, for stopping
Thank you.
having a talk, and thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, bye.
Bye.